It's a miracle of American technology, David Lee Scales.
It really is. And you're in your new studio.
I'm in my new studio, a 2017 Toyota Tacoma pickup.
So it's been your longtime vehicle, but new as a podcast studio.
Yeah, I'm testing it out. How are the acoustics?
Sounds fine to me. Same as the Zen room, better than Mexico.
Perfect.
Why are you in the truck?
Oh, ballet. This is
Okay.
where I live. I live at ballet.
Man, your world never stops. So you got back from Mexico last night?
I'm back from Mexico last night. Have you ever gone whale watching, David Lee Scales?
I have. It's been years and years, but I have.
Did you enjoy the experience?
No, and I don't even remember if we saw whales. I've seen whales otherwise, but not when I was whale watching.
Here's the dang thing. So it's Cersei's dad, my father-in-law, 70th birthday wish to go whale watching.
Okay.
This thing kind of got baked a while ago. You know when something gets put on the books like a couple months out and you think, great, like you stay a couple months out, I'm not even going to begin to think about you.
Yeah.
As it got closer, I realized, oh no, this is like the worst week ever. My book comes out tomorrow. And so like right smashing up into book release week and all this stuff, I was like, this could not be a worse time, but it was already set. Whale watching, something I had absolutely zero interest in doing, in a place in Mexico that has no waves. Like it's the Sea of Cortez side, or I guess the whale watching is on the Pacific side, but you fly into Loreto. You're to Loreto, Mexico.
No.
Like all these places that I didn't want to be, didn't want to go, had no interest in. But as it turns out, went whale watching. It's the only place in the world where whales will interact with people. So
Wow.
got to pet a baby gray whale.
What?
Yeah, they swim right
From
up
the boat?
From the boat. They don't always swim up. Like some, I mean, it's like the breeding ground. And I guess breeding season is over, but the moms still hang out with the babies for a couple more months before heading back north. And so there's like a bunch of moms and babies. So we did 2 days. Like you're out in a boat and it's kind of a bay area and it's super bleak. It's just like the land is just, I never knew. I mean, you know, Mexico can get a little bleak, but it was like the most bleak, windswept, ugly strip of land. But there's the whales and all this stuff. But then, yeah, so day one, saw them, you know, you kind of get close and whatever. But day two, curious little baby gray whale just swam up to the boat and basically sticks its head inside the boat. And then you can pet it and scratch it. It's like a little dog.
Insane. So do they have to chum the water or bait them or somewhere?
No,
Get them.
no,
Wow.
it's the only place, again, or they say, I think it's true, it's the only place where whales are curious about people and
That's so bizarre.
will come up and hang out and do stuff. And it's not always, but if you're lucky, you'll get one who wants to play.
I'm just thinking from like an evolutionary standpoint, there had to be some feeding of the whales or something at some point that created that curiosity.
No, because they eat krill, right? They're not eating fish or anything. They're just like, there's nothing you can feed them. And the guy who started this whale camp, I suppose, he was a fisherman, and they used to call him devilfish because they were scared of the whales, the fishermen, because I think the whales had the natural instinct of flipping boats over with their tails because of the whaling years.
Yeah.
And so they're always scared getting flipped over. But a whale came up to this guy's boat. This is like 20 years ago, I think, and like put its head basically on the boat too. And guy was super scared, but the whale kept doing it. And then he petted the whale and realized, oh, these guys can be friendly, and then started doing whale tours.
Yeah. You know how these stories always end? There's like a documentary about a guy who like raised a crocodile in the Amazon until the crocodile was fully grown. Always ends that way.
I know.
The anaconda sleeps in bed next to you because it's sizing you up to eat you on day 7. You know what
Yep.
I mean?
To strangle you. The thing about the whales are, I don't know that they could, I mean, like, so the baby gray was hanging out and the mom was there too, like swimming under the boat, and I think knocked the boat once, and you realize how huge they are, obviously,
Yeah.
when you're that close. But what's it going to do? Like, it's going to knock your boat over and you're going to float. It's not going to nibble you or anything.
True. But that's really fascinating. So in the end, you had a good time. You were despising the trip, but did you have a good time?
It was a I'm not going to call it good. All the work just backed up and
Yeah.
smashed right into everything else. But I will say it was entirely memorable and unique and fantastic. I was so happy to have had the experience. So yes.
Yeah. That's the thing with the work that you and I do, and probably a lot of people in the modern world. When you get a vacation or time off, it's not like, oh yeah, that work then evaporates and I just come back and start doing my regular work again. Because I'm obviously coming to San Diego this week for one night, and we'll talk about that in a second. But my mom was like, "Oh, that's going to be a nice little getaway." And I'm like, I don't know if I can even enjoy it. I got to prep for while I'm gone. Then when I get back, I have to catch up on the work that I left. So there will be moments in there where I do have joy, but there's a compounding of work that surrounds it.
The more and more I mean, there's no such thing. I think people probably think, or it seems like I'm perpetually going on vacation. None of them are ever. I mean, I go enjoyable places, but it's all just more and more stressful work building up and doing and trying to catch up at weird hours and all that stuff. It's a perpetual work cycle, what it is.
But would you trade it in for a 9 to 5 corporate gig?
No, it's the greatest.
Exactly. That's how I
Yeah,
feel too. So it sounds like we're complaining, but I'm absolutely not complaining. I
love
get
it.
leisurely mornings with the baby, get to go surfing whenever I want or whenever the waves are good. I can choose to use that time to surf. So,
I actually
well,
oddly like the work too. I get jitters if I don't have the work coming in.
yeah,
Like if I'm not
me
doing
too.
it, I feel off.
Me too. I need a giant pipeline of obligation to even feel like I have meaning in my life.
To the
Uh,
work.
well, so hey, welcome back. And a bunch of things have happened. I got a bunch of listener line calls that we need to catch up on, but let's just start off with the Joel Tudor conversation because I think that that's kind of the most interesting news to me in the last week.
I think so too.
Okay. So the basic overview for listeners who haven't seen social media for the last 5 days is Joel Tudor's suspended. Joel Tudor, the current world longboard champion. I believe he's the 3-time longboard champion. He recently was suspended by the WSL for disparaging their brand, I think is the rule. We've talked in the past couple of weeks about how he's taken to social media to call them out for their feigned equality campaigns and the hypocrisy of those campaigns. And kind of misusing some of the numbers. The data that he's compiled is accurate, but it's not a complete data set. He's kind of picking and choosing the data to make his point. Whether or not that's the case, his point is still valid. There's a lot of hypocrisy in their messaging, and the equality campaign is a lot of virtue signaling without a lot of follow through. And so Joel's calling that out, and they didn't like it. They asked him to cease and desist 3 weeks ago, let's say. He did not. He posted their requests on social media and continued to call them out. And so about 5 days ago, they officially suspended him from competition. Open it up with thoughts.
I mean, I think it's patently asinine for one. I think from my read on it, the reason that he got suspended, they were furious and looking for a reason to suspend him. The actual reason for his suspension, from reading between the lines, was comments he was making. And he did one post that he disappeared. Did you see that post?
No.
He did a post that he took down, which was kind of all over the board a little bit. It was like conflating a bunch of different things and then going in the comments, going after Jesse Miley Dyer, the World Surf League commissioner, in a more personal way. That I could totally see that. So to me, that's where the suspension came from. They were looking for a reason. He gave them a reason, and then they jumped on it. But their reasoning of disparaging and all this kind of stuff, they should have said, hey, you went after the commissioner in an uncool way in the comments. They should have been like, I hate so bad just corporate surfing where they did a corporate response, right? Like disparagement and all this kind of stuff. They should have said, hey, once it got personal, then you're busted for, we're going to bust you down for 3 months, whatever. But this disparaging the brand thing, just, I mean, probably legally they have to do stuff like that, but come on, it's Joel Tudor. He's a surfer.
There's no rule against disparaging Jesse personally, so they can't bust him on that.
Yeah, but I mean, again, it's my perpetual problem is rules getting in the way of the core of what we do.
Yeah.
Be they priority rules, Kelly Slater surfing over the wake of somebody's, whatever, and getting kicked out or getting busted, or Joel doing something not cool to go after Jesse personally, right? Like, and I think he recognized that it wasn't cool either. That's why he deleted that post. Uh, so all fine and good, and use that to have a conversation. What I think that I know is that they though were so frustrated with Joel top down that they just exploded on it once they got a reason to explode, which just then to me the WSL at that point looks petty and silly. Like it looks like this one longboarder got your goat so much that you like lost control.
I was trying to think about other examples in other sports where they have done something like this, or would they do this in another sporting league? Because I agree with you. To me, we're looking at it under a microscope. I'm on Joel's side. I like Joel as a surfer. I grew up knowing Joel. The WSL represents, like you said, corpo surfing, which doesn't resonate with me at all. And I see them making wrong decisions all the time. So I'm kind of on Joel's side. And it's hard to parse what the actual objective right thing to do here is. So in other sports, the UFC would ban a fighter for violating certain rules and regulations, but they wouldn't suspend Conor McGregor for talking crap about Dana White or for talking crap even about the UFC. And then in fact, I think they'd lean into it. Like Dana White would then grab the mic and fight back with Conor because he knows that's going to sell more pay-per-views next fight.
I think in like the NBA and the NFL, like disparaging the officials will cop you a fine.
That's fine. That's like what Sonny Garcia was charging the judges tower though.
Sure, precisely. You fine them, and like I think that, but the idea of disparagement of a brand, like I don't think, and I could be wrong here, but I think you could probably disparage the NBA all day. You could say this is a crap league that I don't like and that, is doing fake stuff or whatever. And, as long as you're not officially going after the officials, I'm sure you're probably fine. Like, because the NBA is big enough to take somebody's criticism. And usually if somebody's criticizing, that person can look a little unhinged, right? Like
especially if it's untrue.
Yeah. And so Joel was speaking truth, but it was lightly unhinged. But I think the WSL could have easily dealt with Joel's criticism and like offered a legitimate response, right? Like Jesse Miley's response was so tone deaf. The first one, the one that he posted, again, purposefully misreading what Joel was saying. World Surf League could have very easily done a kind of olive branch. Hey, we are aware of what Joel Tudor is saying, and we agree with some of his stuff. We disagree with some of his stuff. We are always trying to get better. You could always do the we're stopping, we're listening. The standard fair thing. But the fact that they were just looking for a reason that's what it seems like to me. They were looking for a reason to suspend him.
Well, I think they were too. I think the overall reason why we're all kind of disgruntled about this is that the WSL, we've said, should be putting the best surfers in the best waves, and they're kind of missing the point. They've lost the plot at some point. Joel represents the plot. Joel is a rabble rouser, and just like with the UFC, Conor McGregor is the best possible thing for the UFC's brand. And yeah, he's going to say crappy things about the UFC because he's a brawler, and your organization should always be focused on the brawler. And so that's where we're kind of upset about this, is the WSL should be leaning into Joel's rabble rousing. He's a rabble rouser. Let him be a rabble rouser. He's going to say some stuff. You deflect that, and you kind of lean into it, and you allow him to be the rabble rouser. But to think that you can, put a muzzle on the rabble rouser is, first of all, completely misguided. Second of all, completely missing the point. And then third of all, eliminating the greatest surfer in the world. This is their greatest longboard world champ that spans decades. And you're going to now try to stymie that, erase it and stymie it.
the silly thing too, in light of this whole thing came about with regarding equality. Did you see what
Yeah.
happened in Noosa yesterday?
I read your story on it. Fill
So
us in.
in Noosa yesterday, for the first time ever, a woman, I think it's the Old Mal division, which of the Noosa Festival of Surfing, that's like the most serious category, right? And so her name is, what's her name again? Sorry, I forgot.
I can pull it up. Sierra Lurback
Sierra Lurback, female
from Maui.
In a heat, the finals, only men, and not just men, like Harrison Roach, Jared Mel, like, known longboarders, whether or not longboarding is your shtick or not, you're aware of, any surfer's aware of those names, right? Yeah. Beat them all, beat the field of men. So what we have is World Surf League crowing on about equality on top of everything you just mentioned. Now we have an event. This is not a World Surf League event, granted, but still an event. And we've talked to Devin about this, all this kind of stuff is longboarding is the one place you could actually be equal. You could have men surfing against women. And so not only to try to erase Tudor for them, your rabble rouser, leaning into a story you should be leaning into, really, and this couldn't have come at a worse time for the World Surf League, I would imagine, because I'm going to write another story about this, of the one place where equality is really sprouting up, you're totally ignoring.
Right.
Like where that's true equality.
Totally. This is again what they should be leaning into, not steering away from. And this all started, Joel's whole campaign started with the announcement of the World Surf League cutting down the longboard tour from 3 events back to 1 event. And so they are shrinking the one thing, like you're saying, that actually could be their bridge to to equality and to mainstream culture and all that sort of stuff. So we've kind of just spent the time discussing how the WSL has mishandled this, in our opinion. Actually, before we get off that, you were saying that he said some disparaging things about Jessie Miley Dyer that he then deleted. Was this about her allegedly dating one of the WCT female competitors?
Yeah, and Joel didn't even get that direct, but he insinuated that one of the WSL female competitors had unfair advantage due to a close relationship with Miley Dyer.
So is this an official story? Are we breaking this news? Is this known news in the surf business?
No, and I think that's where Joel was off, is I think that he's off base there. I think he was looking at, a friendship, like an Instagram friendship, that was clear on Instagram to everybody, right? That, I mean, we could just say
it's not to me. I haven't seen it.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was just that Tyler Wright and Jessie Miley Dyer were hanging out, right?
Okay.
And so, and they were in each other's Instagram posts a lot and all that kind of stuff, right?
Okay.
I don't think there's any smoke there. I don't think there is any even fire there, or definitely not a fire. I don't even think there's smoke there. I think that maybe you could argue that the commissioner should not be friends with, or as a parent, have as a parent a friendship as she did, as those two did, like a competitor and the commissioner. But that's it, right? And so Joel, I think, clearly crossed a line, and he didn't directly say that, but there was an insinuation. And I don't even think he mentioned Tyler, but there was an insinuation. And so I think that's what actually got him busted at the very end.
So again, if there's no smoke and there's no fire, then who gives a crap? Joel just looks unhinged. You know what? Like, don't even address it. Addressing it, firing him for it, makes me feel like there is something that you're trying to cover up.
Or I mean, it's perpetual World Surf League cannot help but shoot themselves in the foot. Like,
right. Well, because they're missing the point completely from the beginning.
And once Joel starts going down that path and starts deleting, self-recognizing that this is either incorrect or a dangerous thing, and starts deleting stuff, you already got him on the ropes. If he's self-moderating and self-deleting, they didn't make him delete that. They didn't say delete that or else.
Right.
He realized, I think, pressure from others, probably people he cares about, and or his own realization okay, that was, we're sparring here. That
Right.
was a low blow. I'll recant, right? But
Right.
then for them to come back after that and say, nope, you're out. Like they
Yeah.
they look petty and stupid at the point where you had Joel looking a little bit petty.
Well, perfect segue to talk about Joel's role in this and not what the WSL is doing wrong. I think this is exactly how you go out. I think Joel, this is the ultimate retirement. We've talked about Kelly Slater staying too long and he's just going to kind of get beaten into retirement, although he's proving us wrong this season. And other people have just kind of had mic drop moments. Joel Tudor didn't compete for 17 years. He came back, won the world championship last year, and he's just like, he's the best longboarder. And now he's going out on his own terms again. They're trying to shortchange him in terms of pay, in terms of number of events on tour. And he just says, you know what?
Nope.
Here's my middle fingers. F you guys. And then they go, you're canceled. And he's like, good. I don't care anyways. I can do this I can create my own tour. By the way, I'm kind of bigger than you guys in a lot of ways. Joel Tudor as a longboarder brand is bigger
Way
than
bigger
the
than
World
that.
Surf League's
Oh, yeah.
longboarding brand, So
Yeah, no, cheers to Joel. Way to do it. Greatest surfer of all time. You just took the mantle from Kelly Slater, Joel Tudor.
greatest retirement of all time for sure.
Yep.
So one of the comments on Beach Grid said, is it possible to say that everyone is wrong in this dispute? Because I'm not liking anyone's side here. The WSL is riddled with problems and just keeps digging a hole deeper. Meanwhile, in a world full of complainers, Joel Tudor is the granddaddy of them all.
I mean, I hear it. I totally hear it. But the fact that I understand it, but Joel still, in this case, was complaining for the good of everybody else, or for the good of his fellow longboarders. The World Surf League just dropped it and looks petty and dumb per the usual.
Yeah, I think I like this comment because I agree. Joel Tudor does a freaking lot of complaining and then complains about other people complaining.
Yeah.
Like that's part of his whole, one of his main tenets of his vitriol is like, hey, quit complaining and punch the guy or whatever it is. Meanwhile, he's the one doing the most complaining, but I love him for it because it's entertaining. Like
it's fun.
He's wrong, I would say, or maybe not wrong, but I disagree with his stance. I'd say 7 out of 10 times. And I would make the argument that he's actually only choosing the opposite argument just to argue. Like whatever's happening with Levi Slauson kicking his board or getting the board kicked at him, and Joel's reading all the comments in support of Levi, Joel has to leave a comment on there that's in support of the other guy, or not in support of the other guy, but at least calling Levi a pussy for not fighting
punching
the guy. Right.
Precisely.
And so it's like, Joel's just looking to do that. And I disagree 7 out of 10 times, but I love that he's doing it because it's entertaining.
You need an antagonist. I mean, that's what the problem with the wall of positive noise is there's no antagonism, right? Where you need an antagonist, you need the other side, you need some other voice that people can pile on. Like for Beach Grit, Joel Tudor is not the Beach Grit market typically, right? Like it's not the Beach Grit, definitely not the Beach Grit commenter at least, is not a longboard aficionado. Joel has provided so much entertainment for them. Like him, dislike him, get mad at him, throw stuff at him, whatever. All great entertainment.
Totally. He's the Kanye West of surfing.
Yes.
Are you tracking Kanye's thing?
I try not to, but it's just like perpetually in my feed, and I'm so bored of it.
I'm not following him. I never have. I've never followed the Kardashians or whatever. But Lauren started following Kanye just because he's been so unhinged, to reuse the same word. And
yeah, I mean,
he's manic. He's definitely spinning out. And so she, every 3 nights will be like, you're not going to believe what he just posted. And like, he's deleting past posts as well. But you wonder if it is the Andy Kaufman art project kind of a thing. And he's just trying to maintain as the lead story in all news stories every 24-hour cycle. But I don't think it is that. I don't think he's that savvy. I think he's actually unhinged or manic. And he's been only ever told yes his entire last 20 years. And so he doesn't know that anybody would disapprove of his actions, even though people are constantly disapproving.
The only thing I could see, and I don't see much, but is that if it's like if what he's doing is a documentary on basically on celebrity culture, and he is doing the main role just to show how what a spinning wheel of death it is. Remember when Joaquin Phoenix
I loved
became
it.
a rap star?
I don't remember the rap star. I remember the documentary that Casey Affleck made on him where he was pretending like he was quitting
Yeah,
acting.
but that was to become a rapper, wasn't it?
Oh, I didn't know. I didn't realize that. No, I didn't know that.
It was. I think that's what it was. I think he was quitting to become a rapper. Uh,
Hilarious.
but it was all a and I a commentary on celebrity culture, right? The whole
Yeah.
thing was it was a piece of performance art that most people didn't get at the time. They just thought Joaquin Phoenix has lost the plot. And then I never saw the film. So did you ever see it?
Yeah, the film was really good. I liked it. And the
Yeah,
film came out before they revealed that it was all a
uh,
hoax
exactly. He played in character until after the film came out.
for
So
2 years straight.
yeah, exactly. So I could see maybe Kanye doing something like that, where this is all commentary on what our culture, our celebrity-driven culture, has become. Where Kanye can take a headline fighting Pete Davidson over war in Ukraine.
Yeah. The problem is, I think it's more a commentary on what living as a celebrity does to you.
Could be.
You
Did you
know,
see?
and well, because it's like there's been small indicators. He's been building up to this volcano explosion. I don't think it's even erupted yet, but there's been indicators of these things living in his personality, and they're just getting worse and worse and worse. Did I see what? What's the question?
Genius, the Kanye doco on it's either
I'm
Netflix or HBO.
intentionally avoiding it, mainly
Okay.
because of the name. The name.
Yeah. Genius.
Did you watch it?
I watched a little bit.
Was it entertaining?
I mean, it's just it's okay. The problem is the same with the Michael Jordan doco that everybody loved. If you give the subject creative control or a creative say, even, but especially creative control, then you're going to get something that's not that interesting. It's okay.
Yeah, I guess I don't think that he's genius. I don't even think that he's particular. I guess he is talented. Other people seem to think he's talented. And so I, in my mind, he fills this little area where it's celebrity for the sake of being celebrity. And the more they can spin the plates, the more people pay attention. And there's no reason for me to pay attention because there's nothing of value or talent there.
There's been some bangers though. N-word in Paris, phenomenal song.
Maybe so. I'm always curious about, I understand sacrificing your happiness and even your own stability is worth it. And we all make a certain negotiation in our life to do things that we don't want to do so that our family can live a life maybe that was better than if we didn't do those things, right? And so I'm fascinated by that level of celebrity making those compromises to these crazy degrees. I mean, for the Kardashians, it's cameras following you around. You have to perpetually, and you have to continually plump your body full of filler and all this stuff to just keep ratcheting up, what it is that people are entertained by. And, with Kanye, you're looking at it going, God, his mental health is completely eroded. And so why are you continuing to post these things and pick these battles and fights at the expense of your own wellness? And by the way, your relationship with your wife and now your children and all that sort of stuff. And if it's just, like we said, to maintain your name in the headlines, to earn more money at the end of the day, where does that become a lopsided exchange in a way to where you stop doing it? And for him, he's hitting these crazy benchmarks that seem completely unreasonable and not sustainable. And then he goes harder the next day. It's like, dude, or do you do this until you're literally in a mental health facility, like spun out and never able to recover?
I mean, I'm sure there's something too, though, about like just the addiction of fame, like where at some point you're not even necessarily doing it for money. You just can't help but do it. You can't help but like just this idea of fame or notoriety or whatever,
It's already gone too far. He's already past that point.
But it's just a drug that you can't wean yourself off.
Yeah.
Like the Kardashians quit or retired or whatever from their E show or wherever their show was. And, right into a new one with Hulu,
Right.
where, you know, you can't, I mean, I'm sure thinking about living life without a camera following you, they can't even, it's like Kelly Slater and the tour. He can't
Right.
live a life where he's not competing as a professional surfer. They probably cannot live a life where there's not a camera documenting every move they make,
Yeah.
or, you know, curating in this curated form.
Yeah. It's fascinating, which is why we're talking about it on a
We're
surf
watching.
podcast. Yeah,
Yep.
it's really, really interesting. I mean, I think reality TV was interesting because people being vulnerable and putting their real life kind of on display for us to nitpick and analyze. And that's what Kanye is doing on social media. It's like a crazy amplified version of that. It's us being able to examine the inner workings of somebody's headspace, who, by the way, very likely has mental illness, you know, and they're letting it all display.
Joel Tudor.
Crazy. I've got listener line call for you as it relates to the longboard tour.
Dead air. We can talk about vitamin D. We can use this time to talk about the.
Oh, here, I got it. Hold on.
Hey, Chas and David Lee Scales, listener from Barcelona who's very entertained with your podcast. Incredible situation with Joel Tudor being kicked out, current world title holder. I was thinking of an idea. You have the current world champion. You have your very interesting views on how a world championship should be. New longboard world championship by the Beach Grid. What do you think about that? Keep up the work and get barreled.
I just wanted to play that to prove that we have listeners around the world outside of Southern California and Australia.
Absolutely love it. A, B, total. I mean, I've been thinking about this for a while. What I want to do, what I'm cooking up, which I know I say I want to do a lot of stuff. Very little of it comes to fruition. I want to pit Joel Tudor against a shortboarder. I want to have blood feuds of like, let's erase the idea of craft and who's the better surfer, right? You throw Joel out against, let's say, Dane Reynolds. Joel versus Dane Reynolds at Trestles. Let the people vote. Who surfed better? Who surfed it more? You know, like whichever criteria you think. Well, this is all completely subjective to begin with. To pretend there's objectivity in it is up to the World Surf League, right? They can pretend that there's an objective scale. Go for it. We like that too. But purely subjective. Who surfed better? Devin Howard versus stinking. Who could Devin go against? Devin against Tyler Wright. They couldn't get Tyler, but
no, Devin against Felipe Toledo.
How good would that be?
And I got heat number 3, Alex Knost versus Jack Robinson.
Yes. I mean, see what we're talking about?
I mean, that would be so compelling to watch. I agree. Like, and leave the voting up to non-professional judges, like just regular surfers on the internet, 1 to 10 scale, and there's no rules. So Joel's not wearing a leash. If he loses his board and it runs into Dane Reynolds, Dane's screwed. You know what I mean? Like that is what it is.
I mean, to me, like, this is what I want to do. I want to call it blood feud, and I want just surfer versus surfer. Throw a boogie boarder in there. Paul Roach, drop knee.
No prize money, nothing at all. Just like, because the WSL has proved they lose money on these tours. And so there's no sense in Beach Grit trying to like outsmart and make a profitable business model. Let's just focus on the fundamentals.
Completely.
This is what lowers looks like every day. There's a longboarder out there with no leash, and there's a shortboarder out there doing huge blow tails.
Who do you like better?
Yeah,
who
do you
wins?
like better?
And
it might be that Joel cusses out Dane, and we just like that better.
I mean, completely. We might like Joel might do like a weird something that just we accidentally like. Your heart just likes it better. Your heart wants. Your heart sees what your heart sees, right? Like this is what I mean. Sitting and watching surfing on the beach. Rarely do you like the most high performance, or sometimes you do, right? But who you like is subjective. Like maybe you like this guy's arm placement better, right? You think, oh, that guy ripped because whatever he, you know, kink kneed his turn a certain way that was appealing, where they don't have to be on the same craft. I love the way Devin surfs, right? I absolutely love the way Devin surfs, not to blow smoke. but Devin is probably one of my favorite surfers to watch. And I don't know why that is. I just really, really like watching Devin Howard surf.
Did you see the clip he posted from Rincon last night?
Yes, I watch his clips over and over again, not because I think I can surf like that, not because for any other reason, that the way Devin Howard surfs is like watching poetry to me.
There's one moment in that ride that I did rewatch the clip over, and you got to watch the entire clip just to see that one little moment again. But after he does his first big snap, essentially, his transition from that into his next turn. So coming out of the snap, he leans he settles into his hips, like bends his knees, settles into his hips, which forces a bottom turn. And it's when his board is kind of facing back at the whitewash. So he settles into that hips position and it forces a bottom turn that starts. So then he goes kind of mid-face bottom turn, doesn't even go all the way down to the bottom, and then goes all the way back into his next turn. And just that kind of settled into the hips bottom turn maneuver, it was all one motion. There was no pump. It was just a nesting of the hips that forced all of these things to happen. But it generated more speed coming and going through it than any other way that you could have done a bottom turn. And I was like, dang, that was
Beautiful.
so sick. It was so sick. And it was so Curran-esque. Like I've seen Curran do that on shortboards, guns, skim boards, at Rincon itself, and it was just beautiful poetry.
I mean, totally hear you. And also, another example of this, not even with Devin Howard, did you see, I don't know if it's his most recent clip, but Sterling Spencer versus Kelly Slater?
Loved it.
Absolutely hilarious for many reasons. Everybody should go watch that. But in that one clip alone, if that was actually Sterling versus Kelly, obviously Kelly surfed better, but Sterling surfed funny. And sometimes I like to see funny surfing, right? Where I love Sterling's bottom turn in his sweats, his like soul arch bottom turn, his like out racing the barrel, like very, very, very funny. And in this subjective world, you could say, I liked watching that better. That brought me more joy than watching Kelly.
That's the perfect example of the heat format that you were talking about at lowers. Sterling Spencer's backside bottom turn reminded me of Donovan Frankenreiter's front side bottom turn that he would always do.
Yeah.
Donovan knew that he couldn't compete with the campaign momentum generation surfers in terms of doing like radical surfing. So instead he would just do that steezy bottom turn that just looks it was so sick, and you could do it 100 times. I'll watch every time and love it every time. Sterling Spencer did that backside.
And in sweats, right? And
in sweats.
And so you in white sweats. And so ostensibly, of course, Kelly would likely win that blood feud heat, but Sterling will get some legit honest votes.
We don't know if Kelly would even win it. I mean, it could be that Sterling would win it. He's racking up fans daily right now.
Yeah. I mean, but yes, this idea. So back to the longboard tour. I just want to do a surfing blood feud, whoever versus whoever. It does not matter what craft they're on. Let the people vote, argue about, like, just don't vote silly. Don't like rally your fans to vote for you, right? Like, I never like when, the person with the most Instagram fans will win because his fans or her fans will rally and vote mindlessly. Don't vote mindlessly. Vote what you thought was more appealing and why you thought it was more appealing. Have a reason, and that's it. That's good enough. You don't have to be, there's no right or wrong.
Here's the motivation behind how you should vote. Ostensibly, whoever wins this thing, you're going to see more of their surfing next year. You're going to see more of their surf. They're going to make it through a heat. You're going to see more in the next heat, and you're going to see more in the next event because they won this event. So vote for who you want to see surf more of. Mason Hogett's my vote.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Completely. I mean, Dane would get my vote. Like but also, I don't know. Like, there's new crops of kids. Maybe stinking Sierra Kerr gets my vote all day, every day, right? Maybe I would like, there's surfers that I don't see enough of their surfing to say if I want to really see more or less of. But if I saw him in a heat versus somebody else, I'd say, okay, that's the one I want to see more. You're exactly right. That's the criteria. Who do you want to see surf more?
Well, the Centaur will always get my vote.
Every time.
He posted a couple of weeks ago. So all this comedy that he's been reviving has all been gold to me. And he posted something 2 weeks ago that was a little bit of negativity. It was some of his commenters were body shaming him because of his
I
dad
love
bod.
it. He's so
And
chubby.
so he was like screenshotting those negative comments, posting them in his stories and like fighting back with them. And I told him, I was like, dude, lean into it.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
you cannot let them take, first of all, don't feel bad about your body anyway. And his argument was legitimate. He's like, dude, I sustained a head injury 2 years ago, and I wasn't able to walk for 8 months. And so that's why my body's in the shape that it's in. I'm like, don't explain any
Who
of that.
cares? Who cares?
Don't allow them to take the narrative at all. It doesn't matter. And by the way, the dad bod is great for comedy. And
It's
the way
funny.
that he's implementing it in his comedy, but then he backpedaled when somebody called him out. I was like, don't at all feel bad about it. Lean into it. That guy looks like an asshole no matter what. You don't even have to highlight his comment. Like, he
No.
just looks like an asshole no matter what. And he doesn't get the joke. He doesn't get the comedy. He's the one who's not enjoying this, you know?
I mean, Jonah Hill being all super sensitive about his body, to me, wrecked Jonah's funniness in a huge way.
Totally.
Where if you're a comedian, and I know comedians, but just lean into it all. You're funny. You're being funny. It's all funny.
Completely.
It's your whole point.
Completely. All right. Well, we have more listener line calls. Follow-ups. Remember our buddy who was going to propose to his girlfriend on a surf trip?
Yes.
We got an update from him.
Great.
Chaz, David, this is a anonymous caller from about a month or so back asking about a proposal in the South Pacific. Just had a recent development in that situation, and I appreciate you playing my call on air. Thankfully, I don't think I've blown it so far by, them recognizing my voice, or I guess her, not them. Anyways, not important. My trip got rescheduled to where my significant other will be joining me in the beginning of my trip now, and still considering asking the question. However, I don't know now that it seems kind of whack that she's coming for the beginning of the trip. I'll have this time in Bali. If I were to ask the question, she says yes, and then I just go off and do a trip for 6 weeks. Not sure how that'll land. In any event, would love your guys' input. Would love the Beach Grit community input. And thank you, and keep up the work.
So just to bring listeners up to speed, his previous call, she was going to join him on the second half of the trip. And so he was saying, should I propose right when she gets there and we enjoy the trip, knowing that we're engaged, or do I wait till the end of the trip? When do I do the proposal? Well, now she's coming at the beginning of the trip. What's your advice?
I mean, if you want to marry this woman, if you want to ask her to marry you, don't wait. Just ask her to marry you. I say, you said day one off the plane, right? You said don't make a production.
I said enjoy the rest of the trip knowing that you're engaged and celebrating.
Yeah,
so
I say make a production somewhere down the line. Do something memorable, right? Do something that she'll look back on, a story she can tell, that you can tell. Do it earlier, and yeah, do it. Go for it. Pick somewhere fun. Give it to a monkey at Uluwatu and have the monkey throw the ring at her violently.
He seemed to be concerned too about the fact that she's going to be leaving, and then he has more trip without her. And I think that's totally okay. Whenever you propose on the trip, take Chaz's advice on that, I suppose. But then the fact that she's going to be gone for a while, absence makes the heart grow fonder. And
totally.
In your marriage, you're going to end up spending time apart from one another. So just get used to it now. But I think it could be a wonderful opportunity to be apart and let that love fester and manifest.
She can go back to wherever she's going back to, have great luncheons with friends and family, to just the glow, the blush of young love on her while you're ripping, and then you come back and enjoy that too.
And also for her to let that love steep, like she's just, the anticipation for your return is going to be off the charts.
Yep. Do it. Pop the question, my man.
This is almost working out better than if she came at the second half of the trip.
Way better. So much better. Because you'd be like all thinking about it and wondering about it maybe the first half of the trip, and then she's there and you're like, too much anticipation, you blow it. You're fine. Do it.
And then this just adds tension. This adds thrill and excitement. He referred to his potential fiance as they or them and then corrected it? Was that intentional? Is
I
this
think
a
it's-
woke listener?
I don't think so. I don't
Oh,
know
okay.
that we have very many of those, but I don't think
I
this
think
is
we
one.
do.
I mean, I think we do
do.
too.
I know we do. As a matter of fact, have a very diverse audience, much more diverse than you would think, as
Yep.
indicated by our Barcelona listener, our one lone Barcelona listener. And there's a call later that will also surprise.
Oh yeah.
All right, here's a follow-up from our previous, I think our last episode.
Good job, Chaz. I have to say you did a spot-on job spotting Gabriel Medina's left foot and making that connection with Michelangelo's statue of David. It is called contrapposto. I think the rough translation, you're just going to call it opposite position. You have your left leg engaged. You have your right leg loose and relaxed, and opposite for your upper torso, your left arm and your right arm. Yes, nice work. I think it says a lot about Michelangelo's understanding of the human body. And I have to say also, David, the statue, really, it's about this very intense combination of tension and relaxation. A man that's about ready to commit a very, very violent act, but is also very relaxed and committed to what he's doing. Anyway, Chaz, hey, that was some earnest work. You keep up the earnest work. I appreciate you and David Lee as well with your podcast. Thank you.
Do we have the best listeners on earth or what, David Lee Scales?
Well, they provide a little art history lesson in the middle
I'm
of the
telling
surf
you,
podcast.
I just learned a lot right there.
Yeah.
Contrapposto.
I feel like I've heard that term before. I knew that term was in my awareness, but I had completely forgotten about it until he said it.
I'm going to start judging surfing based on contrapposto.
Well, as so many of your headlines, we're not sure if they're clickbait or true grit. And that's one that for sure, I think we even put it in that segment. It's almost a non-story, except viewed through a different lens. It's the best story in surfing because now we know. So Gabriel was in that posture when he's not competing. So it's understandable that the tension in the posture maybe is just because he's going to go surf right now, but he's relaxed because he's not competing. But what I'm going to now be looking for at events around the world is who is standing in contrapposto before their heat. And that's who I'm going to be putting my money on. It's the
relaxed but ready.
Relaxed but ready. David slayed a giant because he was relaxed and ready. If he was all ready, it's too much tension. There's a vulnerability there. It's the relaxed part that's key.
Do you think that Caio Abelli is relaxed but ready when he went and giant slayed all those years?
Yeah, he exactly is. You're right. Caio has a relaxedness to him. And last year when we put money on him, he had lost some of that relaxation.
He lost the pressure of the people, made him stumble.
And this year there's no pressure because he's not even on tour.
Nope. He's a free and easy.
He's just contrappostoing all over the place. Caio in full contrapposto. It's amazing. Okay. Let's go surfer bedtime stories call.
David, Chaz, hello. This is Ryan from the East Coast, from New Jersey. I actually sent you the pictures a couple of months back of the Rockin' Fig board that I had from Huntington Beach after he sadly passed. I was thinking about something. I often go back and listen to old episodes, Sean Thompson, Roger Hines, Mickey Munoz, Dick Metz, and I've listened to some of these episodes a handful of times, and I thought, what if we did a surfer bedtime story segment where maybe once a month we shorten episodes to 20 to 30 minutes, and you or Chaz, especially Chaz reading books for some of his readings, we could actually put surfers to bed all around the world with some of these great stories. Just something I was thinking. Don't have to pull the trigger on it just yet, but I really love what you guys are doing. Obviously, long-time listeners, so keep up the work. Talk soon. Get out.
Love it. And you know who we really need to get for these segments, though, is one Devin Howard. the
He's got the
aforementioned
best
Devin
voice.
Howard. Best voice, sleepiest voice, if surfers really want to go to sleep. The stories, though, great idea, are going to have to be boring episodes in surf history because you're looking to go to sleep, right? You're not looking to inspire or invigorate. And so it'd be like a story of Kelly Slater shopping at Foodland, right? Like he went up this aisle, he looked at the lettuce, he went down to this aisle and eyed a can of beans, but realized that inside those beans was lard, and he wasn't going to eat that lard. Kelly entered the checkout line and examined an Us Weekly, like that.
I like it.
Yeah.
I saw this like 5 years ago. I was talking to Steve Pesman from the Surfers Journal and explaining, the podcast concept to him. And I was like, you guys should be doing a podcast, obviously, but instead of like designing some concept for what that would be and how you would do that, let's just start with reading your articles.
Yeah.
Like just an audio version of somebody reading the articles this month and make that available to subscribers in an audio format. There's audiobooks that exist. This would be a version of that. And I'm like, I can do it for you. I mean, I'll find somebody else to read it, but like I can do the production portion of it. And he's like, 100%, I'm all in. Follow up with Brendan or whoever it was at the office at the time and tell them that I approve of this concept. And then I never did anything with that idea.
Good job.
I left that room and I was like, I got about 10
Sweet.
other things to do today.
Yep.
And so let me get through those. And then tomorrow I had 20 things and the next day 20, and I just never came back to it.
Man, the good ideas that die on the vine, David Lee Scales.
We could still implement that one though. I mean, that one's super easy to implement. I think it fits in line with what this listener is saying. Is just like short. It fits in line with what you're saying. Is the tone will be low, like low, muted, kind of subtle, so you can fall asleep to it. You can revisit it tomorrow. Yeah,
great idea. Thanks, listener.
Okay. Do you read stories to Hemingway, bedtime stories?
Yes, from time to time. Will do. She's actually become a voracious reader herself, so she reads her own bedtime stories now to herself, not out loud. She just goes in her room and starts reading.
Was that ever a ritual though that you guys did regularly, where you have quality time at the end of the night?
Yes, but it was more cinematic. So I would choose the movie we were to watch that evening. She didn't get a say in it, and so I've chewed through all the classics. Like, she's a big lover of 80s movies, and so watching Pretty in Pink and all those, and watch them basically a chapter a night of. So she has watched. Her cinematic understanding is fairly, I guess it's just based on me, but I think it's vast. It's Indiana Jones and her favorite ever is Sean Connery, James Bond's, loves a Sean Connery, James Bond. So yeah, those are her favorite movies of all time. So that it was more of that than reading out loud.
As in terms of reading, has she been introduced to her namesake yet?
She has. I was just thinking, it's funny, in Mexico, I brought the book To Have or Have Not, a Hemingway book that is not, I think, one of his better known ones. I've become more a fan of Hemingway, oddly, over the years. And I like actually reading him now. I mean, Death in the Afternoon, one of my favorite books of all time. But aside from that, I was never a huge Hemingway fan. But To Have or Have Not is great, besides the constant use of the N-word.
So did you read that to her?
No, I did not. I could not. It's if it's not a derogatory name for Chinese, then it's the N-word.
Right. So has she read Hemingway?
No, but I'm gonna now that you mention it's time. I mean, Hemingway's, his prose is so digestible that she'd have no problem banging out some from Who the Bell Tolls, or I'll get
the prose is digestible, but the subject matter, I think, is not necessarily interesting to a young child.
Well, she's got a pretty broad palette of what can interest her.
I mean, the stuff set in Europe could be interesting to her just because of the setting, bullfighting, stuff like that.
Get her into it.
I'm curious. Yeah, it'd be ironic if she didn't like it or if she hated it. By the way, that's a good talking about books. This is a perfect time to talk about what's coming up on Wednesday. You want to pitch it?
Sure is. Yeah. So this Wednesday, got the reading of my book that actually officially comes out tomorrow. Blessed Are the Bank Robbers, official release date, the Ides of March, March 15th. But the reading will be March 16th at Warwick's. David Lee Scales is going to be there. He's the reason to come down. 7:30 at Warwick's in La Jolla. The book, I think, just got texted through. I think I got blowed up right now on text. Just got reviewed by the New York Times, which is a rarity. Less than 1% of the books that come out a year get reviewed by the New York Times.
Wow.
I
And
don't know what it says. I just
okay.
got
I
blowed
don't
up.
know if it's a good review
Crap.
yet.
No, but got reviewed. But anyway, yeah, come please. If you're in Southern California, come tomorrow. Warwick's, or not tomorrow, Wednesday, 7:30, Warwick's. La Jolla.
Tickets are, or you can come for free. It's open to the public, but if you want a reserved seat, they charge you the price of the book and you get the book and Chaz will sign it. So if you do want to make sure that you have a seat, go ahead and reserve it on their website. And then what is my responsibility as the moderator? Do I talk to you about the book specifically? Do I talk to you about our history together or your past books? What are we doing?
No, I think you and I just talk about the general idea maybe of bank robbing, things like that, things
Okay.
of that nature. We just have
Okay.
you and I have a conversation.
Okay. And then you're going to do a reading as well, right?
Yeah, I'll probably read a bit, but I'll probably keep that short. I think,
Okay.
yeah, I think you and I talking about, so I can fill you in right now, talking about bank robbing, talking about fugitive, life as a fugitive, any questions you have about that,
Okay.
ask me. I'm an expert now.
I'm going to study it.
Yep.
Okay. Here's another call.
Chaz, David, this is James from San Diego. Listening to the March 3rd podcast, the latter half talking about the Zuckerberg surfing, I don't even know if you'd call it surfing, but surfing little lulls is the way you guys are making it sound, and I believe you guys wholeheartedly. And just to piggyback off that, what's Kai Lenny got invested in this friendship? You know, is he trying to get some like meta stocks? Is he kind of just like scared of Zuck, that Zuck could unleash, you know, the I don't even know, the metaverse upon Kai Lenny? I don't know. I was curious what your thoughts are. Conspiracy theories are obviously encouraged. So, anyways, keep up the work. Talk to you later.
I think Kai Lenny is very, very, very savvy and hides that savvy under a nice and honest veneer of very, very, very friendly. And so I think, and those two things are so intertwined that he can't pluck away his savvy from his friendly. So he feels like, hey man, I'm friends with Zuck because Zuck needed a friend, right? This guy gets beat up a lot. He surfs, I surf. He reached out to me. I'm not going to say no. I mean, thinking Kai Lenny was on the Dirty Water podcast, right? It's not like Kai Lenny is, I think Kai Lenny is a nice guy. You ask Kai a question, you know, he'll answer your question, right? But I think underneath that is extreme savvy of thinking I am friends with one of the most powerful men in the world. I need a favor. This is nothing but beneficial to me. Like whether financially beneficial,
Yeah.
you know, socially beneficial. This is only ups. The only downside I get is people hating on it, which is a pretty minor downside.
Right. It's interesting. I do think Kai's savvy, but I think you're giving him too much credit. I think the benefits of doing something with Zuckerberg are very, very obvious. You don't need to be that savvy. But I'm not convinced that Kai identifies any of the negativity. I don't think Kai thinks negatively about very many things. He seems to be a very positive guy, but I don't think that he's seen the backlash against Zuck that maybe you and I are talking about on a week-to-week basis.
That's
and
true.
so
I mean, Kai,
I don't think
yeah.
he sees Zuck as a negative figure. I think he sees him as a good figure.
I think Kai probably wakes up literally at 6 a.m. and goes on a fast jog and then
Exactly.
goes on a paddle and then paddles to Kauai to say hi to Zuck and then paddles back to Maui to windsurf. And yeah, like you're probably exactly right. It's probably not in the news ever or on social media much other than posting stuff. So yeah, maybe Zuck is just another guy. He knows he like started this big thing and that's pretty much it.
Or any of the negative press that he's seen, everybody at that level gets bad press, and anybody who's that big of a ruler of something is going to have haters or whatever. And so that's probably what he attributes it to. I don't think that Kai's actually like thought about the ramifications for society at large based on
No.
what's happening in tech.
Do you think that Kai Lenny has ever seen a clip of Mark Zuckerberg testifying before Congress?
No.
Yes, Senator. Yes.
I would think that Kai would have an opinion about his about Zuck's appropriation of Hawaiian culture, though, or the land ownership thing, just the taking over of the land.
No, because Kai, I think at that level, he's only hanging out with rich people probably, or most of the people he is hanging out with are super rich appropriators who are also all good talk, right? It's like, man, I bought this big piece of property and it's all solar run now. And I'm sure every one of those guys has how their giant land acquisition has made Hawaii a better place.
Right. Does this make you think less of Kai Lenny?
No, because Kai, like having talked to Kai, the fact that Kai talked to me and Derek Riley good naturedly makes me think exactly to your point. Kid is not mean. Kid is not mean spirited. Kid is like, you reach out to him, he will hit you back with some, whatever. Like, so no, Kai is, I think, uniquely, like, beautifully Teflon in the way that you would want like a real simple, happy guy to be.
I hope that he maintains that for the rest of his life.
Kai with some jade on him would be a bad look.
It's a bad place to be, to have critical thinking. I mean, not that he doesn't, but like, they talk about the fine line between genius and insanity. And the kind of the flip side of that, I think, is I have a friend whose sister has, I don't know what, it's not Down syndrome, but it's like a mental, limitation. She's the happiest person I've ever met in my life. And it's like, she's never says a negative word about anybody. She's not cynical in any way. She's just happy 24/7. And so I think that there is kind of like,
I like how you tied this directly to Kai Lenny.
There is a happy medium there somewhere. I think Kai's is more a reflection of his talent, and where he lives has allowed him to just do fun things all the time, and not necessarily have to spend time in school or going to college or anything like that.
Totally. And maybe Kai has like very limited mental curiosity about anything, like politics, religion, anything. It's just like,
that's kind of my point. Why would you?
That?
Why would you? If you get to surf great waves all the time and you're in a perfect environment, then why would you?
Yeah, and it seems like his physical, what it takes for him to be physically engaged is so much that like he has to do that all day, every day, right? Like I know people who, in order to kind of keep their sanity, they have to do a lot of physical activity.
Yeah.
Like they have to run, they have to surf, and they have to do something else every day. And if they don't do all that stuff, they like don't feel good, right? Where maybe Kai is like, he literally has to be doing 18 hours a day of stuff. And so there's just zero time to ponder anything.
Okay. Well, let's hope. I'm glad that you didn't speak negatively about Kai, because we want to keep that sheen on him and not make him feel negative thoughts.
Nope. Impossible to say anything bad about Kai Lenny.
Okay, good. By the way, a friend, we were talking about him or Zuck on the March 3rd episode, because Zuck was getting towed into waves, outer reef waves. A friend of mine, listen to that, sent me video footage of friends of his doing the exact same thing. So these are well-to-do friends who go to a island. I'll just leave the island nameless, but a warm water location. They don't surf Monday through Friday or the rest of the year, but they go to a warm water location. They pay ski drivers to do exactly that, just tow them into waves
lumps,
that are kind of big bombies. What'd you say?
To like lumps, to like big, they're not like top to bottom.
This one was that, but then it ran down the line and closed out, but it wasn't top to bottom. It wasn't like towing them into a slab or anything like that. It was towing them into the wave kind of before it hits the reef. And so they jump off the ski, get to their feet pretty efficiently, surprisingly, and then kind of like very unstylishly wiggle down the line until the wave closes out and they straighten out, jump off, and the ski goes and picks them up. And my buddy goes, "Hey, this is no joke. Well-to-do guys are paying to do this." And he's like, "I'm pretty sure these guys all identify as surfers."
Oh yeah.
And like go back to their daily life and talk about surf culture and surfing from the
Well, and
vantage point of being a surfer.
show pictures of the big waves they rode.
Right.
Like, not only are they surfing, I mean, it's like Zuck kind of couldn't help but talk about the 15-foot waves he surfs, right? Like, they go
Right.
back to their whatever corner office and say, "Man, when I was out, and they know enough to play it down. It was like 15 feet. Well, how tall is that?
Yeah.
It's like a 3-story building. I mean, it's not that big. I don't surf big waves." And then big wave
Right.
surfer.
I want to hate on it so much, like because that's, I don't know, just instinctively my response is just, that's not surfing.
You can
think-
and should.
Well, I think that what that stems from is there's no reward in it. Like it's all of the artifice of saying that I'm a surfer and talking about it at work, but there's no reward in being towed into the wave and wiggling down the line.
The best thing we can ever do is be in a room where those guys are talking and say, "Oh yeah," and just like the wry raised eyebrow, and let the rest of the room see that wry raised eyebrow and say, "Ooh," and make that guy feel like a kook.
Because I don't think I want to even make him feel like a kook, or I wouldn't say anything other than raise the eyebrow, because I don't want the people in the room to then ask me about surfing,
No,
or
you-
like,
you could
I
say,
don't want
"I
to
don't
be the
surf."
authority. I don't want to be the one
Nope.
who's talking about what my experience is. I just totally want to judge that dude as a kook.
Yep, he is, and you can.
Okay. Well, we just did.
Yep.
All right, let's go commercial, and then we'll come back with 2 headlines from True Grit and then Barrel or No.
Great.
This is murky water right now, Chaz, but I'm going to turn it into what looks like the most beautiful shade of chlorophyll green that you've ever seen in your life.
I'll tell you what the color of AG1, also known as Athletic Greens, is. It's the color of health.
It really is. athleticgreens.com/surf.
Get healthy.
Did you drink this in Mexico? Did you think to bring it with you?
I didn't, and guess who felt awful in Mexico? Guess who just felt not right all through
Well,
Mexico? This guy.
I'm going to guess you.
Yep, it was me.
So the other benefit of it, in addition to the nutrition, is hydration. I always feel adequately hydrated when I start my day with it. And in Mexico, that's what you need.
So what you need, and you also need something to cut all that corn and all that tequila. I didn't have that. If I would have had Athletic Greens, I would have been right as rain. I could barely pet the baby gray whale because I was so emaciated.
By the way, I didn't know that corn was so bad for you when I was a kid. As an adult, corn is the villain. When I was a kid, it was like, I thought that was a vegetable. I thought it was good for
Totally.
you.
I mean, I love me some corn. Don't get me wrong. I love Mexican food, but so much corn, too much corn is just like, oh man, if I never see another thing with corn in it for the next 2 weeks, I'll be happy.
Well, I think potatoes and corn both need better PR people. They need the PR agency that Kale had for the last 5 years.
I mean, Kale's PR, whoever was on the Kale account, crushed it.
The same guy who's running the quinoa account, I think.
Does athleticgreens.com/surf have Kale inside of it, do you think?
I think it probably does. I don't know off the top of my head, but I would bet money that it does. It looks like kale.
It's got pulverized greens, which that's what the body needs at the end. Talking about potatoes and corn, body doesn't need that. The body needs pulverized greens.
Little did I know as a child, potatoes and corn would become the enemy.
Yep, not Athletic Greens, thankfully. Something that both tastes delicious and makes you feel good.
athleticgreens.com/surf. Find optimal health and support our work here.
The baby gray whales will thank you.
That's how we stay independent, Chaz.
Yep.
All
Do
right.
it.
Okay. I almost stopped the recording accidentally rather than just stopping the commercial.
Would have been a disaster.
On to True Grit or clickbait crap.
I'm really hoping that you're going to mention the greatest story in surf in this headline series.
Does it involve Joel Parkinson?
It sure does. And mudsliding.
Sweet, it does. So I'm going to actually read to you two headlines. I intentionally did not even read these stories because I really wanted to just hear from you what's happening with this whole debacle. But so I'm going to read the first headline, and then 2 days later, another story dropped, and I'll read that headline to you as well. Quote, champion surfer Joel Parkinson at center of wild Gold Coast pell-mell involving mudsliding, TikTok, ageism, and alleged hand-to-hand combat, exclamation point. That story was then followed by Australia rocked by revelation that surfing champion and moral pillar Joel Tudor enjoyed mudsliding hill days before castigating semi-adult TikTokers for doing the same, exclamation point.
Boom, both true. Both true. Australia rocked. Man, I'm getting rocked too in my Facebook. I'm getting threats straight from the Gold Coast about this story.
because you're speaking poorly about their championship surfer?
Yes, because I'm poking fun at Joel Parkinson.
Wow.
Yeah.
Facebook is the place to attack people and to threaten their life in the DMs. I think that happens more on Facebook than anywhere else.
It's really great. This person had such Coolangatta spelling of words that it was wonderful to read. It was like poetry.
So what's the story here with Joel?
Well, so the story is some viral footage was released of Joel Parkinson yelling at these semi-adult TikTokers sliding down this mud hill, right? Telling them to stop. Things got out of hand. He threw their camera in the mud, et cetera, et cetera. Next day comes out that Joel Parkinson himself was the one who started this mudslide and was doing it. And so then went afterwards and yelled at the kids. Then more footage came out. Other footage, the Zapruder film of Joel actually throwing the semi-adult TikToker to the ground. And then Australian News did like a poll, who's right and who's wrong in this whole thing. So man,
my gosh.
I think I've done 5 stories on it so far. These are my absolute favorite Beach Crit stories. When I can take something so silly, like this is peak Beach Crit to me, is Joel Parkinson fighting with TikTokers over a mudslide is absolute the height of what I do.
And so what is the age range for semi-adult?
Well, that's the problem, is that like I could not tell. That's what baffled me the whole time. And anyone feel free to go watch the videos from Beach Crit. Anybody who does TikTok who's over, I don't know, some age is confusing to me. These guys are in such a weird asexual, like they're like prepubescent 25-year-olds somehow. That's how they look to me. That's the only way I can describe them. They're like,
and Joel assaulted one of them, threw him to the ground.
Yeah, Joel throws one to the ground and dumps their camera. And Joel's like have you not seen the footage?
I'm telling you, I did not even click on the articles because I just wanted to hear it from you.
Oh yeah, it's totally worth watching. Joel, it's like really embarrassing for Joel, right? Like the fact that he did it first too makes it even more I mean, the whole thing, it's like every bit of it is like, it would be more cringeworthy, except it's just straight up hilarious.
Okay. The way I'm not that it matters, but the way that I'm understanding it is Joel saw this mudslide opportunity, so he went for it. Just like, I'm going to go one slide. And then because he figures that's not going to erode the environment, right? It's just one slide. But then he sees that a bunch of other people saw him do it and they start eroding. Was his concern the erosion of the environment?
It might have been, but the problem was that Joel started the slide, brought his kids and family to the slide. They all did the slide. Them having fun on the slide made news first day. And so it's like this champion surfer, Joel Parkinson having fun in the slide, in the mud, right? So then these TikTokers go and see, we're going to do that too. Then Joel goes and yells at them for, I think there was some about not respecting that people lost their homes and stuff in this flood. It was like a real moral screed along with the probably destruction of the hill, even though he started the damn thing. And then, so like the layers of, it's hilarious at every layer. Peak Beach Crit. There's hypocrisy. There's Joel Parkinson looking unfit. There is him getting mad at something that he should have had no business being mad at. There is semi-adult TikTokers being prepubescent at 25. It's all beautiful throughout.
Hilarious.
Yep.
This is the week of Joel's.
It is. That's what somebody, I think it was Jimmy the Saint, said in the comments. Uh, Waiting for Joels to make an ass out of themselves is a lot like waiting for a bus. Sometimes you stand at the station for a couple hours, but then two buses arrive at the same time.
Man, Jonah is so close to Joel. I wish
Yep.
that his name was Joel, because it would all just tie everything together beautifully. We could
Yep.
retire if that was the case.
It would be done.
We're done. You hit
Joel Hill.
zenith right there. All right, for Barrel or Nah, we're going to go to a listener call. This is a long one. You're going to have to endure 2 minutes, but she offers us some gold. So here we go.
Here for it.
Hi, Chaz and David. This is Hannah calling. I've been talking to Chaz about Kelly's feet. Now, we need to get him some Crocs. Now, I think that's a Barrel. If you think that's a Nah, I disagree. And plus, you've got your 5th subscriber on YouTube that's a female. And I want to talk about him dropping in on John John. That was fucked. You can't be doing that. And what's your thoughts on transgenders going into the men's or women's? And also, the WSL couldn't organize a fucking route in a brothel because they're in the wrong season in Paniche, and I know that they pay for it, but they fucked up real bad there. It's shit. I keep trying to watch it. It's like, this is on par. And Chaz, you're a legend. And there you go. That's me done. Bon voyage. I forgot one thing. You need to start printing t-shirts. Chaz has been talking about saying Kelly has blocked me because he blocked me on Instagram for asking for his mailing address so I could send him Crocs. So I think Kelly's a little bitch, and we should start printing t-shirts saying I've been blocked by Kelly with the number 11 on the back in a yellow. I think that would be a good selling point for you guys. Anyway, have a good day.
I'd call is absolute Barrel throughout. It's just straight Barrel. We should call Hannah in regularly.
We can retire. I think we just hit the zenith of the podcast right there. That was as good as it gets.
That was it right there. Brilliant. Thank you, Hannah. Barrel on the call.
Barrel on the call. She started that call by saying that you and she have been discussing Kelly Slater's feet.
She hit me up in the DMs with a wry observation that Kelly, like as a grown man, should not be showing his feet always, and he's always in flip-flops and whatnot, right? And so I agreed that yes, you know my position on men showing their feet. Don't like it.
We've talked about it. It was a Barrel or Nah in the past about wearing flip-flops in public.
Don't
and
do it.
He's not listening to us, obviously.
Don't do it. And so, yeah, my suggestion was, well, let's get him some Crocs, right? Then he can be outdoorsy. He can be aerated and also covered. And then, so apparently she hit him up and got blocked, and on it went from there.
So did you know that story about her getting blocked because of that? Or
I knew she got blocked. I knew Kelly blocked her. I didn't know it was because asking about the Crocs or mailing address.
Got it. So hilarious. And we'll start with Barrel or Nah Crocs.
You know, I've been up and down on Crocs. Sterling, I mean, I've been mostly down on Crocs, I will say. Sterling Spencer.
Devin's calling me.
Sweet.
Should I answer? I don't want to answer right now, but I've been curious, like with all the Joel Tudor stuff, we have not heard from Devin about it.
Haven't.
I'll call him back after we get off the podcast.
Okay.
But go ahead. Sterling Spencer.
Sterling Spencer, Crocs, Barrel. I'm gonna say Crocs. When they're now such a thing, or they've gone up and down, right? They were ugly, and then they became ironic, and now I think they're stasis. So I think there is a appropriate way to rock Crocs. So I'm gonna say Barrel.
Have you ever worn them?
Never. Never even slipped my foot into one.
They're so ugly that I've never been inclined to wear them, but I've actually, as they're making a resurgence in popularity right now, I've heard a number of people telling me that they're game-changingly comfortable.
Great. I don't think I ever will wear them, but for others, I used to judge. No more judgment from this guy.
Got
Wear
it.
away.
Okay. Aren't you curious how they feel?
Yeah, but I don't base my choices on comfort.
Okay. I would like for somebody to wear them to my house, slip them off, and then I could just stand in them for a split second just to know what they feel like.
Take a little tour.
Exactly. Okay, barrel or not, also from that call, trans athletes competing.
I mean, the swimmer thing, I just don't know how, if that's what specifically she's talking about, I just don't know how you can justify it, to be honest. Like, I know, hate away. People call in and call for heads, but there's I think she swims for Penn, is a trans athlete, just shattering records, right? Shattering records and going for the Olympics, where can't do it, man. Come on. Like, I don't know how this is, it's just not fair. It is straight up not fair. So I think athletics at its base, there's a level of fairness that is required for athletics to be fun. And when you jump that, sorry, like, I know you should do what you want to do. Start a swimming team for trans people to swim against each other. But aside from that, no, I am not for men competing in women's events. I'm all for women competing in men's events, not the other way around.
Yeah, it's funny. What the part that I'm shocked by the most is the straight up vitriol for saying what you just said.
Yeah.
That
People
exists
get real mad.
nowadays. Like to not understand that argument, whether you agree with the argument or not, but to get so angry at you for feeling that way is the one part of this whole conversation that is the most confounding to me.
I mean, I just don't understand how, like it's baffling how sexual preference and somebody's, or it's not that it's sexual preference, that, whatever you
Gender
feel
identity.
like, your identity, all that stuff, all of those are valuable. I don't know how those, though, trump fairness. Like, how are those such greater, how you identify is now the whole thing that the earth spins around, right? Why,
Right.
Since when? Why? Like, why can't fairness? Why can't other people's rights or other people's ability to compete on a fair playing field have equal weight to how you identify?
Well, because the person who's identifying that way has been treated unfairly for all of their existence and all of the world's history, essentially. And so I think that they're kind of using this moment as, well, now I've got people listening and the world, or, portions of the world on my side. So I'm really going to try to make up as much ground as possible. But there is biological, physiological differences that exist based on which chromosomes you have when you're born, right?
And when you transitioned, I think this swimmer transitioned post puberty, and so has all of the male juice, and of course takes hormones and whatnot now, but still had that.
If your muscles and bone structure have formed in a way to where your physicality is male and you're able to excel in certain strength related things as a male, then yes, fairness now becomes a question.
It's so annoying to me. Like, the whole thing is absolutely annoying. And I know people are going to probably not people who listen to this show, but other people, this is it. This is how you identify. It's the end all and be all of life.
Yeah. And so again, I don't understand how they could get so angry by you acknowledging, or by anybody acknowledging, the physicality kind of biological portion of it, and also ignore, I don't know. I get it. Whatever. Moving on.
No barrel.
Yeah, I agree. No barrel as well. Moving on. Barrel or not, being blocked by Kelly.
I mean, I really wanted to do these t-shirts for a long time. I don't know. You know how to print a t-shirt, right? Can we just print these t-shirts?
It's too freaking expensive, dude. Like, yes, we can. The answer is
I don't want to make money off it. I just want, an offer.
My problem is I have thousands of dollars of t-shirts sitting in my garage right now that'll never get sold. So how many do you print? It's all an inventory management question.
I know it is. But can we do this? Can we do this like at cost? Like, where, yes, the t-shirt's expensive. Because to me, the I've been blocked by Kelly thing, you have to prove you've been blocked. You have to show, to get the t-shirt, you have to send a Instagram screenshot of your avatar, whatever, your name, and then searching for Kelly Slater with the no user found.
Okay. Scott, our buddy Scott, listener Scott at Custom Logos Printing in San Diego. This is a free commercial for Scott right now. Scott, if you're listening to this and you want to print one-offs for us, when we get this evidence that Chaz is talking about, you already have the design, you already have the screen printed. Can you just print one large
One at a
shirt
time.
one large shirt for the dude who proves that he's been blocked by Kelly? And that way we'll cover the cost.
Yeah.
And maybe the listener will cover the cost of, but we don't want to print 60 larges, 40 extra larges,
No.
40 mediums, and hold all this inventory waiting for people to prove to us.
Yes, I need somebody to prove it. They get a t-shirt. They pay for it. It's $45, whatever, shipping and handling. I don't know how much t-shirts cost these days, but it's a real trophy, right? And
Yeah.
those who have a t-shirt, those who've been blocked by Kelly Slater, like it's a badge of honor.
Yep. Okay. I like it. Let's do this. Let's make this happen.
Scott,
And our
please.
first t-shirt will go to Hannah.
Yes, of course. Number one.
Hannah in Australia.
Thank you, Hannah.
Bon voyage. when she was making her way through that call, I thought for sure I was getting pranked. I was like, this is somebody faking. Is this Jesse Miley Dyer calling in right now? And then I'm like, no, it's somebody faking an Australian accent. And then I looked at the caller ID. It was an Australian number.
She's Australian.
I think it was totally sincere.
I gave her the caller line number. She asked for
okay.
it. I DM'd her the caller line number.
Okay, good. Well, thanks for that call. That was wildly entertaining.
Yep.
And
thanks,
Chaz,
Hannah.
welcome back to Southern California. It's great to have you back.
Great to be back. Great to be back with everyone. And please, it'll be even better. Come on Wednesday, 7:30, Warwick's, La Jolla.
I can't wait. We're looking forward to it. Despite the work that I'm going to push off till Thursday,
I know, I'm
which is,
sorry.
by the way,
I know.
St. Patrick's Day, Thursday.
Oh, sweet. We can get wasted.
I don't think I will be, but I do have corned beef and cabbage in the fridge waiting for a return on Thursday. Corned.
Delicious.
It's corned. All right. Well, hey, great show. At Surf Journalist, at Surf Splendor, beachgrit.com, surfsplendorpodcast.com, athleticgreens.com/surf.
See you all Wednesday.
All right. Until then, Chaz.
Get barrel.
Before you get off the call right now, let's do a commercial for Warwick's that I'll put at the beginning of the podcast.
Okay.
Since we took so long to get to it.
Yep.
All right, Chaz, welcome back to Southern California. Before we get into our show today, we have to tell people that you and I are actually going to see each other in person this Wednesday night.
Live in person. COVID is over. I guess it's not over, but we can get together again, David Lee. People are getting together. You and I are getting together, inviting other people to get together with us.
This is an actual gathering, not just for you and I, but for the listeners.
Not a Zoom gathering. It's not a call-in. This is live in person.
You and I uniting for the people.
Yes.
What are we doing?
I have my new book coming out. Actually comes out Tuesday, tomorrow, but the March 15th, but March 16th at 7:30 p.m. at Warwick's Bookshop in La Jolla, California, 7:30 p.m. doing a live chit chat, you and I, about the book, about, just book adjacent things. Probably get into some surf. We'll get into other things. Just have a nice talk.
Sweet. So Warwick's is the oldest family-owned, continuously running bookstore in America.
I mean, it's a legendary spot. If anybody hasn't been, it's worth it to go just to go to Warwick's. Historic, great bookstore.
Yeah. So we'll be there 7:30. I'll be moderating the chat. We'll be chatting. Listeners will be there. It's open to the public, free to the public. You can reserve a seat if you want in advance. And they do take, I think it's $23 or whatever. It's the price of the book. So you reserve the seat, you buy the book, you get the seat if you want to reserve a seat. What's the name of the book? And for people who aren't in Southern California, where can they buy it?
Blessed Are the Bank Robbers, the name of the book. My cousin Danny, a prolific bank robber, reached out to me, funny enough, David Lee Scales. He was on the lam. He was a fugitive, robbing banks, fugitive from the law. Reached out to me after the Ashton Goggins episode because he figured I didn't sound like this type that would turn him in.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's how
Hilarious.
that's what caused him to reach out. He's reached out to me on encrypted Swiss email, writing, hey, do what you want with this email. Try to, whatever. I didn't know where he was, so whatever you want to do, go to the cops, do whatever. You just don't seem like that type after that Ashton Goggins episode.
So he's a podcast listener.
Podcast listener.
Crazy. And
Cousin Dan
so
Thornton.
was he asking for help, or what was he reaching out about?
No, he was just like, basically it gets lonely, and obviously, like, you're a fugitive, you have to, all your friends and family are gone, you're not hanging out and stuff, so
Wow.
just wanted to chat. And so, yeah, so
Fascinating.
basically we started emailing furiously, and then the book is sort of, we both grew up very evangelical, our Christian upbringing, and then he swerved to robbing banks, and many, not just one, like tens upon tens upon tens of banks. And so I was, he's who taught me how to surf. Like, we were close. And so I'm perpetually interested by bank robbery as a thing. And
Me
so
too.
this active peek into the mind of a bank robber while it's happening was just too much. So yeah, the book came out of that. Blessed Are the Bank Robbers, out March 15th, but live reading March 16th at Warwick's.
I'm going to read the entire book within the next 48 hours. Wish me luck.
Fantastic. Enjoy.
All right. All right. See you Wednesday.
Yep.
All right. Bye.
Thanks, David.
No problem. See ya.